What's up, everybody? This is D.H. Thorne. As some of you can probably tell, I'm a little bit miffed, a little bit annoyed. Although I shouldn't really say I'm surprised. So this is going to be a live video because I think that's probably just a little bit more honest, and I don't have to script anything. You can hear what I really think about this right off the top of my head. Is it a really huge deal? Probably not. But it does mean that once again, the powers that be have decided that what we think and what we want to say has to be regulated and controlled by them. As a Luciferian, I am diametrically opposed to pretty much all forms of non-consensual censorship. And what that basically means is if someone wants to speak their mind, they shouldn't have to worry about some big brother telling them that they can't say what they have on their mind. It also means that they don't have the right to shove it in your face and make you believe what they believe. And there are certain standards. You have the right to walk away, and you have the right to a public space, in my opinion, that is free of at least certain things. But that doesn't mean that things like this should be censored. And now, I don't want to get into the whole debate about whether YouTube has a right as a platform versus a publisher or any of that bullshit. I'm not here for that argument. What I'm saying is that the rules that YouTube uses are bullshit. They're not clear. They are not fair for the creators. They are literally just a way for them to protect their own ass in every possible situation. So for those of you who may not know, as of tonight, my channel luckily does not have a strike on it, but after someone probably flagged my video, the ritual that I did to Marbus regarding I won't even say it, the spooky virus that's out right now because I don't want to get flagged again. Apparently something in that video set off their censors, and they decided that they had to shut down that video and remove it. Now, I want to let you guys know that that was one of my finest channelings. That was one of my best videos that contained some really powerful physical manifestations. You could see myself being affected very directly by the flame and the power of what was going on. However, this video, what really bothers me is that I know, because of my research, because of my divinations, and because of my work with the spirits, at least I have a very intuitive understanding of what's going on out there in the world right now. And I know the powers that be don't want any kind of alternative narrative to even crop up in the imagination of people. And they're being exquisitely strict about this coronavirus outbreak. Oh, I said the dirty word. They're probably going to censor this video. Now, I understand. We don't want to have people going around spreading misinformation necessarily that could lead to people being injured or wounded or whatever. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. Even as a Luciferian, I understand the sentiment, even though I don't always agree with it. But this idea that this video that I shared somehow encouraged people to harm themselves, according to what they're saying on their letter to me, which I can't really post because I'm on a live stream, but they actually I could probably do it. I could probably share my screen, but I'm not going to do that. I shared it on Facebook, and I shared it as a message on YouTube. So they indicated that my video, The Ritual to Marbus, where I channel him and speak about things relating to this spooky virus, potentially violates their terms of service, encouraging people to do harmful things and otherwise dangerous activities. And I did have one person privately tell me, well, maybe it's because you put blood on the sigil. And in that video, if you can tell that I actually drew blood in any way, shape, or form, I'd be impressed. I didn't use a knife like I've done in some of my other videos where I made it very clear that I was cutting myself. You can see I cut very deeply and obviously on camera. This was a diabetic needle, and as far as anyone could see, there was no blood even being shown. So you can't tell me that this had anything to do with that. It was implied that I did it, although most of you know that I do it. Now, you can't say that that was the harmful activity they're talking about. The only thing that I can imagine is that someone interpreted what I was saying as some sort of medical advice. However, I put a disclaimer in the comments of the video, and I made it pretty clear in the video that this wasn't medical advice. This was spiritual advice and spiritual in nature. This was as much as I hate to use the term religion, this was a religious performance of working with a spirit in a ritualistic way. And for them to turn it down, take it down, shut it down because it doesn't fit some narrative, or maybe that it exposes something about what's going on that they don't want happening. You know, they protect the shit out of China. Anybody who knows politics, anybody who knows the global grand game that's going on, you fucking know. I shouldn't have to say it. And I live in fear a little bit, I'm going to admit this, of being reprimanded by certain elements of society for my political persuasion. Even though I'm a Luciferian, there's certain things I want to make this a career. I want to make sure that I don't lose my subscribers. I want to make sure that people don't hate me just because I didn't vote the way they want. Okay, and that's a real thing, and it sucks to be in that position, especially as a Luciferian, to have to, you know, sew it up a little bit and make sure people don't get offended because I might say the wrong fucking word, and that goes in both directions, by the way. So this irritates me on a level that probably it shouldn't. I mean, you have to understand, I'm acting a little bit more mad than I probably really feel, but I'm very annoyed by this because I know this isn't just a case of I did something wrong. This is a case of censorship, plain and simple. Now, I have appealed it, and I have definitely put forward my opinion about why I was, you know, in the right for uploading that video. It was a religious performance of a religious act. It was not meant to be medical advice, and that was clear. Now, I spoke to my wife and I said to her, you know, I guess from this point forward, all my videos are going to have a little disclaimer that says this is for entertainment purposes only, because that's the only way to get your point across to the fucking, easily offended assholes that are out there in this world. And I guess that's what I'm going to have to do. And if you're one of my fans, I'm sure you guys don't mind that. And I shouldn't mind it. It's just a 10-second, 3-second little entertainment purposes only. Don't do anything in this video because me. Even though I'm pretty sure if you watch my catalog of videos, you'll see I'm very freaking responsible on what I tell people to do and don't do. So, and I'm reading you guys' comments, and I love you all. You know, I love you all as much as a person can through stream. Never met you. Your support means so much to me. Your fandom, your appreciation, your friendship. Those of you who are following me on Patreon and supporting me on Patreon, those of you buying my books, making this career a possibility, you guys are, I couldn't do enough. I couldn't say enough to express. I mean, I'm like welling up just thinking about it because I've never had success in my life in any of these kinds of things. And to know that you guys appreciate anything that I do, you know, it is humbling. And I am the antithesis of humble, okay? I don't believe in humility in the classical sense, but it's humbling in the sense that I feel like I have a responsibility to do best. Not just good, not just better, but the best that I possibly can. And that video was maybe not my best spiritual experience, but certainly one of the best performances of a channeling I could have done. I don't know anybody short of maybe Behemoth X or some other people that even come close to doing what I do in that video. And that bothers me that such a good performance has to be freaking censored. So now, for those of you who might not know, I do have a BitChute account, which I don't really use because it's buggy as hell. Getting uploads to work can take forever. And it's supposed to automatically take all of the videos that I do on YouTube and upload them to my BitChute account. Now, that's awesome, but it doesn't fucking work. So once again, I have a problem here. I have a problem where what I'm trying to do is being blocked. And what will probably end up happening is I'll be doing a ritual privately, of course, to Vine or one of my other more potent spirits that usually handle blockages like this. And I'll see what can be done. Now, I already have it intuitively known that it's not that big a deal. You know, I have the inner voice telling me, let it go, it's not that big a deal, it's one video. And that also, you know, at first I wanted to stand up and be like, time to resist, time to protest, time to do that thing that Luciferians can do. Luciferians also like to go occult and hide shit and do shit in the dark and preach to the people who want to hear them if necessary. So in this case, in this particular instance, I am no longer going to be talking about the spooky virus on my YouTube channel for fear that some pencil neck asshole who is offended by anything other than their narrative gets mad and flags my video again. So I'm going to turn to some of the comments now because I want to get off this main subject, but I did want to make this video, and I don't want to keep it super long because I want people to watch it. Usually a live stream that's like an hour long, people kind of tune out for. But we'll go for a few more minutes and talk to you guys, and I want to just really appreciate you guys. So let's read. I have to zoom in a little bit because my eyes suck. Divine Spirits Message TV says dark blessings and hello, and hello, Divine Spirits. And Solute 367, what the fuck indeed. This topic is absolutely needed to be discussed. Thank you for this video. You're welcome, Divine Spirits. In fact, my political perspective, I keep out of my spiritual work in the sense that I don't like to talk about it. But I don't mind telling people a little bit. I don't mind giving you guys an idea of where I stand. Because as a Luciferian, you can probably predict what my opinion is going to be on political issues. I believe in freedom, personal freedom above, some moral requirement for government to protect us like a fucking nanny. So you can probably already understand where I'm at with that, and I don't probably have to explain too much further than that. Nina the Mystic, thank you once again, as always, for coming to help moderate. I appreciate you very much, and I appreciate the help that you do. You asked to do this job, and I can't thank you enough for that support that you give me by doing that. Let's see, Andrea Bijore, I think I'm saying her. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. The video was gold. Thank you. I think it was pretty good too. I hate that they took it down, but I'm also thankful for you sharing it the way you did. And I will be sharing it again on BitChute. And I guess what I'm going to have to do is I'm just going to have to start plugging my BitChute channel too at the end of all my videos so that people go there just in case I lose my livelihood on YouTube because I didn't fit some lame narrative they have. And Ordo I'm sorry, I know what it means. Ordo Sonitus Lux, Light, I love you, my friend, Light. I am honestly thinking that someone flagged it because they got pissy that you were touching on a very real fear of the virus with the occult. Not only that, and this may be just paranoia on my part, but I have to reveal to you guys something that I don't talk about except in private. When Epstein killed himself, I did a ritual to Balaam to scry into his situation. I have video footage still on my computer showing what I received about that divination, and it was very clear. He wasn't killed, we all know that. In fact, he's very much alive with a new face, and he was, again, in the Virgin Islands, withdrawing his money and all that kind of good stuff, and there's evidence of that going on now if you know where to look. My point is, certain things, the powers that be, if you reveal that it's you, that you know things, they don't like that getting out. And I'm not that big an influencer. I've only got 1,000 and change. I've only got just about 2,000 subs. What that really means is at most I have about 200 or 300 people that actually watch my content. A lot of those are old subs over the years that dry up and go away and so on. So realistically, it's not that many people are going to be influenced by what I'm saying. However, because they use algorithms to take care of all this stuff, they will shut down anything that is interfering with their narrative. And Google, YouTube, all these big corporations are very much invested in China. China's a big market for them potentially in the future. All the MMOs, if you guys like MMO games, you'll realize that when China started being catered to and it opened up as a new market for video games, it had a big impact on what was allowed to be put into those games. They had to make different versions for China, different versions for America. And so the goal of a lot of these corporations, believe it or not, even if you want to insert your, like conspiracy theory into it, which some of them I ascribe to, I'm not going to talk about that much right now, but even if you didn't want to put that in there, you have to accept that these corporations want to make sure that whatever content they put out can be available in all of these big markets. So that means they have to generalize the censorship, not just for the American audience, not just for a European EU audience, and fuck the EU, pardon my French, but also for China and for their proclivities of being easily offended if you say anything that is contrary to, Chairman Mao or whatever the fuck. So you have a situation where people like me posting videos about this are an affront to their ability to control the narrative and protect their interests. And that's why if you, stop what you're doing, open a new tab in your browser, go to YouTube, go to the top and do a search, just put coronavirus. Tell me how many pages or screens you have to go through before you reach anything that is not a mainstream news source. Anything. Okay? Now, that already applies for a lot of other topics that are current events already. But YouTube was, once upon a time, meant for me and you. It was meant for the little guys. It was meant to be an enclave or a safe space, if you will, for the little guys, not the mass stream media, the fucking mass insanity media, as I like to call it. Instead of for them, it was meant to be for us. And they've taken over. Their money has bought the front page of every fucking YouTube situation ever. And so therefore, people like me, if we, talk about this stuff, all YouTube has to do is flick a switch and their algorithms go crazy. Or just some hater of mine has to say, well, he's talking about things that could be construed as medical advice. Let's hit that flag button. Oh, I'm mad because D.H. Thorne disagreed with me in a comment. I'm going to hit that flag button. And that's all it takes. And that is the epitome of a not free environment. That is the epitome of let's all go back to the Nazi Germany where, you better watch out what you say. If somebody hears you, they'll report you. So we don't really stand for that in my opinion. But again, I am not saying that I should be allowed to, put snuff films on YouTube. I do understand a certain level of we'll say limit that people's freedom of in that sense should apply to a public square. In the public square, you shouldn't be allowed to impose your ideas or make them see things that they shouldn't necessarily be forced to see. But having a voice is not something that should be censored, and we can argue the specifics of that all day long. You can say, Thorne, I think that we should be able to say anything, even porn should be available right on your street corner. Like let's all move to Amsterdam or whatever. But I understand a certain limit, but this is not breaking that limit. Any of you who saw that video know very clearly that I was very careful, and it's difficult when you're working with a spirit to in any way, and I have to do this all the time as I tell people, when I'm filtering with a spirit showing me and telling me, I don't say everything I see because, well, sometimes it just seems too crazy for me to talk about, and I'd prefer to keep it to myself because I'd rather, in fact, that video felt very tame. I was very careful to only say what I knew would be acceptable to people. I didn't give you medical advice, I didn't do any of that stuff, and I didn't want to say things that I was seeing, and there's things I was seeing that I can't prove. And when I can't prove them, those things can come back to haunt you, especially in this industry. If I say, oh, I saw that this, not just that this was man-made, but if I said that I saw certain things that maybe led me to believe that it might even be programmed for a specific genome or something, if I saw things like that, was that just my imagination or was it the spirit? And can I justify saying that? No, I can't. And I have to be responsible because I am an influencer and I do respect that. I have to be able to say I can't put out every idea and everything that I see because it's irresponsible to do. It just isn't right. So if I'm already self-censoring that much, that I'm making sure that what I'm saying is safe for general consumption already, to be told that what I showed you in that video was somehow encouraging you to do something dangerous or hurt yourself, I want to give them the double fucking, you know what I'm saying? I want to invoke Sid Vicious. Fuck you, mate. Fuck that shit. So anyway, let's go back to some more comments. I think I'm getting it out of my system. Thanks, guys. I honestly think that someone flagged it. Yeah, I think we covered that. They got pissy. I was touching on something. Sorry you're going through this. Your channel's awesome. Thank you, Divine Spirits. Carl Block says, YouTube is full of shit. Keep up the good work. Don't let them get to you, brother. They're not. It's just that, this is like my livelihood now. And if they, at least it's a big component of it. I mean, my books will always sell on Amazon, independent of what I do. In fact, I get way more book sales just by Amazon's ability to, list it alongside other books and so on, than I do from any of my own self-promotion, honestly. I've checked some days I've done like big videos where I try to promote my book and maybe I'll see like a jump of like 2 or 3 sales, maybe for like the whole week. So it's really, it's really just based on that. But my other income, Patreon, and my ability to talk to you guys and enjoy this work, to speak for my spirits, to speak for my beliefs, to speak for what I do, to show you guys the rational, sensible, sincere practice that I attempt to bring forward is really important to me. And if I lose that, it's a giant chunk of what I do. And so again, as I said before, for the time being, I'm shutting down all conversation of that spooky virus. And if I do talk about it, it will be in code, as I just did. So anyway, let's see. Yes, appease the snowflakes. The Mystic, thank you. That is, yeah, fuck the snow. Guys, you need to watch Ultra Spiritual. That guy cracks me up. JP is fucking hysterical. I don't know if you follow Freighter Xavier, but he might have some advice on avoiding the YouTube pricks. Actually, no, I don't think I know him, but if you know him on Facebook or something, send him my way. I'll at least be interested in hearing what he has to say. Jason77 gave me the palms there. Hit that like button, guys. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Share it with your friends. Make sure that I get out there to the world while I still can, which hopefully will be forever, but... don't forget, guys, I do have spiritual protection, but of course, sometimes things are meant to be. We do have to experience setbacks sometimes so we can learn from things. I teach you on the path, things you learned. I appreciate that. Thank you for telling me that. Where did I get my ring from? Actually, both of them came from Amazon. I don't have like access to some kind of special dealer in jewelry, but they both came from Amazon. I have no idea what. One is a tentacle ring, which I don't know if you guys can see it because my view is really delayed, and this here is I don't know. I felt like it reminded me so much of my own Trinity of Self that I wear it quite a bit. Let's see. Outside of any, Andrea Bjore says, outside of any potential cover-up, maybe they're censoring it like an anti-vax video. Yeah, yep, I think you're right. You spoke of magical preventatives, sort of things like malachite. Maybe that's their BS excuse. And I understand that. And that is probably what they're going to say. And I'm probably going to hang my head and say, if you saw that as medical advice, I think that's a reach, considering it was spiritual in nature. But you're right. And, there is definitely, like you said, even if you don't really see it as censorship, or cover-up of what's going on in China, that's fair. I think that's fair, too. I don't want to be unreasonable, but I do think there's definitely an agenda here of controlling the narratives in general. Let's see. Who wants to bet the person who clicked dislike is the one who flagged? Yeah, probably, but sometimes people dislike a video because they dislike what happens. Like, some people don't know how that works. I've seen a lot of videos, like let's say you see a video that's about something that happened, like maybe there's like a shooting or something, and people will dislike the shit out of it even though there's nothing wrong with the video because they're mad at the situation. They're, and they don't realize that has an effect. However, unlike Amazon, likes versus dislikes are really just a metric for the YouTube creator and the viewers to know what the general populace thinks. It actually doesn't affect where you end up in their algorithms that much, if at all. It actually has more to do with watch time. If you guys watch more of my videos, both in duration and in numbers, like how many people watch it, yeah, then that actually can screw with me. So that is something to be aware of. Let's see. T. Camilla, gee, I wonder who that is, says, absolute bullshit. I've heard of a good deal of this being censored from multiple creators. Yeah, I'm not the only one, and some people told me that on Facebook, that I'm not the only one who's had their videos, put in a limited state, whatever that is, where there's shadow, where you can't see it unless you know to look for it. Is there a place to watch that video, asked Dragon W11. As of the moment, it is uploaded to BitChute. I'm waiting for it to finish processing. I will probably put a link as both on my Facebook as well on YouTube. I'll make an announcement, not a video. I'll just probably put a post with a link to it, and I'll probably link to it on my Patreon and everywhere as well. Because really, you guys, I think from this point forward, I'm going to start pushing harder to use my BitChute account, and maybe I'll even put some exclusive stuff on there so that you guys have a reason to go check it out. A little bit of social engineering on my part. Sorry about that. All right, let's see. Donnie Brasco says, Ordo, probably, like, how the hell are they going to dislike a live video? What the fuck? Yeah, good point. It's not like, hopefully my sound quality is not bad. Maybe that's why. No, they're probably just pissed off at the situation, or they're pissed off at me as a person because they're a fucking, whatever, loser. If people only knew how much work they put into keeping us blind and the games that they like to play. And VK Johannes holds the same belief. There's so much knowledge out there with this, and that this crazy is not worth saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying. And VK and I have talked a little bit. VK and I, like, we're different people. I don't know how our chemistry would be as individuals, but I get the impression that he definitely is in the same spectrum when it comes to certain things like that. And we don't have to agree on every policy or on every ideal. So long as we agree upon the right to express it and to live our lives free, then I don't really care what you believe otherwise really that much. If you disagree with me about how you want to live your life, that I'm here to empower that, not to deny you that. The only time I draw the line is if your freedom somehow crosses over my right to be free as well, or crosses over my right to life, liberty, and happiness. Then I get annoyed with you then, kind of like with the vaccination argument, with that conversation. I feel like for me, and I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to make a point about what you should do. But I know for me that there's times where I agree with one side or the other, and it really depends because my mind is not focused on what the collective needs. It's focused on what I need based on the collective's function. If the collective is functioning well, then that means we're all supporting one another, but we're not stamping on each other's freedom. Is it better or worse to be free or cared for? I'd rather be free and thrown to the wolves and have to fight my way out, because then I know if I survive, I'm stronger than if I was protected by everybody. Many of us do. The further you go on your path, the more power of silence comes into play. As many things are, it's easier to believe if seen firsthand. That's true. Actually, that's something I'm doing. Throat chakra videos. Actually, I'm doing all the chakras from my own perspective, and I really want to do a video about that because it's actually going to be a major part of my next book, is what chakras can be to you in the infernal currents, in the left-hand current, because a lot of people don't realize that chakras, for example, are not these dogmatic things that some people like the love and light new age hippie types want to think of them as. They are actually something else a little bit. And I'm not an expert on the traditional use of them or knowledge of them. All I know is that what they are is malleable. It is something that you can shape into whatever kind of tool you want it to be. So you can absolutely use them for infernal purposes, for working with the infernal divine, especially if you understand the infernal divine isn't evil or bad for you. It is literally just the hidden side of the gods, the dark side of the gods that we all once loved, still do. Someone said amen. I'm gonna, as Donnie Brasco, but it's after his rant. He said amen. I follow you, brother. If Christians can teach the Bible on here, why can't we discuss our beliefs on here? And that's my worry, and that's what my argument's going to be. And I hate to use their tactics against them, but I have to. I'm going to state, and I did already in my appeal, that they're infringing on my religious freedom to speak what's on my mind, what I think spiritually, especially considering the fact that it was a performance of a religious right, a religious, even though I don't consider it a religion, it is absolutely a part of religious freedom, that spiritual practice. And they basically, by censoring that, they are dangerously, censoring my religious freedom to express that, especially since I wasn't encouraging anybody to hurt themselves. So anyway, let's see. That's Not Grass says, hey, DH, hey, Grass, what's up, brother? Seeking Serpent 6, hey, I like seeing you. I always recognize that eye whenever I see it. It's very recognizable. Let's see. Sorsha, hey, what's up, sweetheart? I just started watching your other video, and I had to stop when all this stuff went through, so I hope you don't mind. But it's kind of interesting that your video about magical protection, and I only watched like the first 2 minutes before I got the notification, I got annoyed, was, kind of like at the right moment for this. The other interesting thing is it actually came through at the exact, pretty much to the minute. In fact, let me look. Let's see if I can see. That video came through. So it was a little bit off from the exact moment of the full moon here where I am. My familiars are hungry, so I'm going to have to take care of them tonight or sometime during the day today. But I tend to feed them on the full moon, so hopefully this isn't one of my familiars acting up, but I don't like to be superstitious like that. But it is kind of interesting that happens at this moment. Let's see, where was I? Hence limiting your knowledge. True Donnie. That's Not Grass says, most of those in government are the most in denial and need the most shadow work. Yeah, including the media. Our society is based on developing psychopaths. That's why people do more running than facing the truth. If you read Shadownomicon, it almost sounds like you did, because so much of our culture, so much of our world is pretty much, how do I put this? Jung was right. Humanity isn't just the one facet that we understand. Humanity is like any spirit. It's like Indra's web. There's so many different, dewdrops on the web, and they all reflect each other, and they all create a reality of their own, and each reflection is its own reality, and so on. And our mental, spiritual, whatever, is absolutely got a shadow to it that if we don't integrate, can absolutely ruin our experiences, but they lead to growth. So we shouldn't say our shadows are bad, but people need to learn to integrate them. And our world, I don't think this has changed very much. I think that since the dawn of time, we've developed worse and worse ways to not integrate, but to exacerbate our shadows. And only occasionally, when you have these periods of free thinking, like the Renaissance, or like maybe the last 50 years in general for at least certain people, you have this little bit of integration happens, and then people freak out, and then somebody blames that for the woes of the world, and they clamp down with religious conservatism, and that's dangerous, of course. Let's see. So I think Sorsha's going to be taking a walk, because I think she said she's just popping in, but that's fine. I appreciate your support there, Sorsha. Make sure you guys check out Sorsha's channel too. She's definitely growing things, and we're of like mind on a lot of things in the community. Let's see. Andrea Bior says, I agree, it's probably a cover-up, and they need an excuse, like calling Malachite medical advice. It's nonsense. We're 100% on the same page here. Yeah, and it's not like I said the Malachite will protect you. I said, so I don't remember my exact words, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe I need to look back. But again, those weren't necessarily my words. You have to understand I'm channeling something at that moment. What comes out is impulse, okay? And if it's 100% correct or 20% correct, I don't care. That's not my job. My job is to report, and then you use discernment and decide if I was in contact with something or not. And to be honest with you, Malachite is like novice level stuff for healing. There's stuff that I understand that I don't talk about because I can't say this will protect you from something. I actually had a friend on Facebook remind me, you can set up egregores in your blood to protect you and all kinds of stuff. I don't worry about it because I don't even see the spooky virus as something that's going to be something I need to take drastic steps to protect myself from. I'm more concerned with the paranoia, the fear, and the lunatics running around who refuse to prepare for this in any way, shape, or form because they don't want to act scared. At the last minute, if there is an outbreak in your area, I don't think you're going to die from it. I think that's really, really, really unlikely. But I do think that you are likely to suffer various shortages and potential, interruptions of service, medical care, all that kind of stuff if it blows up. And don't forget, because I'm a very small minor celebrity, I got people telling me things now. I've got people who privately message me who are in the health industry that I won't name names and I won't get into that. But I hear things that you don't know. Okay, remember that. And there's things that they're afraid of, they're worried about, they're preparing for. The next couple of months are going to be a big deal between March and April. That was something that was told to me recently. And most people know this in the medical industry because it's also it's flu season, okay? But they're also gearing up for a potential problem. And the real problem isn't that, 2 to 3% of the people are going to die, so you're going to die. No, that's silly. That's like being afraid of crossing the street because there's a chance you get hit by a car. It's actually because if the health industry, if the hospitals and the doctors are overwhelmed with people who have this flu, and they're all going to be petrified of dying, so they're going to be running in there in droves, then you're going to have a situation where other things aren't going to get the care that they need. People aren't going to be able to pay attention to it. And you won't be able to get, NyQuil and Dayquil, and you won't be able to get any kind of mask, whether you need it or not. You won't be able to get any of this stuff because it's going to be gone. So you might as well be prepared to be like, you know what, I don't want to leave the house for a week because it's running rampant in my town. So I'm going to make sure I have just some bare necessities. Some people live like that already. I'm self-employed now, so I don't have to go out that much. I just have to go out when I need things, which isn't very often. So that's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying for that. And they might have got annoyed because I did, as Marbus indicated, he did warn and caution people and basically said, don't let them control your body because of this. And that scared me more than the virus does, because if you have a spirit warning you of that, that means that they're seeing something you don't know about. And maybe this won't apply to people everywhere in the world, but somewhere in the world, maybe just in China, your medical, your biological rights are utterly, like under the sword of Damocles at any given time. You could lose whatever freedom you have at a pen stroke any time. At least in the United States, we have certain protections, but even that gets overruled when the right person decides that it's a public health emergency. So, you could see a situation where people are forced to take certain medications or whatever. And I'm not trying to tell you that you shouldn't take them by any stretch. I don't want to. I'm not a doctor. I couldn't tell you that. But what I will tell you is I oppose any law that inhibits your ability to do with your body whatever the hell you want, as long as you're not hurting anybody. You know what I mean? And when the government decides that you're not taking a virus vaccination could kill people, they're kind of on shaky ground, because that implies that you're doing something that harms other people. But it's a little shaky to me. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to make too many arguments here that'll get me booted off of YouTube, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, let's see. Getting some compliments. Thank you guys. Yeah, there's definitely some lag, Sorsha. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's where I am, but there's definitely lag between what I see in the comments, because I believe the video is like behind by 20 minutes. Not 20 minutes, that would be ridiculous. 20 or 30 seconds, excuse me. So it's behind by about 20 to 30 seconds, so there is that. They're setting up for mandatory. Yeah, Nina's asking, do I think they're setting up for mandatory vaccine? Yeah, maybe. maybe not. Maybe this actually just has to do with China. One thing that actually I thought might be going on is that China released this to have an excuse to clamp down on those markets. Because here's something you guys might not realize. China is, as a country, a really weird mix of like the worst kind of communism, because it's basically just authoritarianism, and like a black market capitalism, okay? And so you have this situation where China's turned a blind eye to the capitalistic tendencies of the black market because it helps the prosperity of the country, and they get to look good on paper, and they get to build their ghost cities with nobody living in them, and they get to do all this stuff and look like they're the biggest growing economy in the world. Meanwhile, it's that kind of, and I know some people are going to hate me for this because capitalism is an ugly word to some people, but it's the capitalistic side of what they're doing that is kind of holding up at least the lower echelon of their society. So these markets are probably, and this is just a guess, I don't know for sure, but these markets, these wet markets and these other markets are probably like a hotbed for this kind of activity. And they represent something that's not under the boot of their control. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is some kind of, even if it, just for the YouTube censors who are going to try to censor this, I'm not saying that they spread a virus around, even though I totally am. What I'm saying is that even if it was a natural event, they're going to probably use it to clamp down on the standards of, their economy there for food and drugs and all sort of stuff. So at the very minimum, they're going to do that. At the very minimum, and on some levels, I'm not opposed to some of that. I mean, I don't like the idea of, as much as I'm into freedom and stuff, I'm also rational enough to know that I don't want somebody, being allowed to pee in my drink and then, because there's no health standards, I can't take action against it. I don't like the idea of a market selling me rotten food, even though they kind of do. If you guys know the standards of food, even in the United States, you can have a piece of meat that's just about like you wouldn't eat it. They'll bleach it, they'll dye it, and they'll put it back out, and they'll put it on sale for half price. But yeah, so there is that. And people are agreeing with Nina, yeah. Yan Yan Tan says, and she's right, only about 2%. She says 0.2%, but it's actually 2% who catch the coronavirus die from it, according to your president. Unless it becomes more deadly, it spreads fast, but it's not that. No, I mean, it's not that deadly. No, 2% isn't that deadly. I'm not even trying to imply that it is. I mean, I've been doing the math from the GIS website, and there, when I do the math, it's pretty much stable at about 2% so far. For a little while, it was close to 3%. But the other thing is, I'm noticing there is something going on that I pointed out to somebody today. And that is, if you take all the number of resolved cases, it's taking an extremely long time for them to resolve. And when they do, the statistic is actually not 2%, it's like 20% are dying. Does that mean that's what's going to end up dying? Probably not. We have to wait and see what the result of the long-term statistical average is going to be, because you can't go with a sample size of 100 people for anything rational with science, okay? You need like a big sample size, you need a control group, all this other stuff. So in a sample size of this size, I can't say that it's going to be really high. I personally believe what they're saying, 2 or 3%. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be a huge impact on society. Don't forget, the regular, influenza is like, what, 0.1%, something like that. So, and people freak out about that when it comes to your office. I mean, some of you guys who might work in a small office or something, if someone gets the flu, that, with some exceptions, of course, a lot of bosses will be like, don't you dare come in if you're going to kill my whole staff. Not because you're going to die, but because you're going to shut everything down. And consider that again. If you have an even more expressive, even more easy to spread version of the flu, or even just as, but now you got another strain floating around, you got another group of sicknesses that are going to shut people down. So let's see. Donnie Brasco says, more coverage makes it look bigger, but is it a threat? Out of billions of people, nah, more likely to be murdered. Yeah, you're 100%. That's why I said in that last video, don't be afraid of this. That's a foolish response. Don't be scared of this and be putting yourself into a state of fear. Never fear. I don't believe that fear is a rational, response to things. I mean, you can't avoid feeling fear, but you can feel fear and not let it control you. You can have the experience of fear and work through it. It's something that I've been working on my whole life, and a lot of people work on. People who jump out of airplanes have worked on it pretty good, and maybe they're afraid of spiders but not jumping out of airplanes. You know what I mean? But if fear is controlling your actions, Unless we're talking about the immediate reaction to a stimulus, it's stupid. If somebody puts a gun to your head and you go like this because you don't want to get shot, that makes sense. But if you're afraid of guns existing because someone might shoot you, well, that's getting into irrational territory, if you ask me. Let's see. Yeah, Sorsh is saying that's the thing. Bodily autonomy is so important. And I think these disease scares are tools of propaganda so the government and Big Pharma can control us. Yeah, and that is, even if we are going to, let's take off all of the tinfoil. Let's put away what Marbus said, and let's put away what I've said already. And let's just go with what we can prove and what we can rationally believe and what we can rationally talk about. And just go by the facts as they're presented by the controlled media organizations. Even if we go by that and just that. And especially if we just go by that, by the way. And this is something I'm going to come back to in a second. They don't have a right to tell us what to do with our bodies, to respond to it. They have a right to encourage us, to advise us, to regulate certain industries, perhaps, on the certain trade rules that they have for regulation. But they don't have a right to tell you what to do with your body as a result. And why I said I'll come back to that in a minute is, if you are paying attention to this, you will see that the mainstream is both cheerleading for everyone to be kind of like watching this, like it's like make sure you're looking at it, but they're also like trying to sound like there's nothing to see here, it's just the cold, you're just going to get a little sick, don't be scared, don't worry. So if they do start pontificating about how you need to take vaccines to take care of it, or else, like your kids can't go to school if they don't have it, or some other thing, it's kind of like, what would you call it? A Hegelian dialectic. You have a situation where it does, whatever it is, you're getting a situation where if they're saying that it's nothing to worry about, and then they're using fear to promote something that you shouldn't want to do, we'll just leave it at that. Bob says, "Hey DH, could you please explain me what the black flame is and how it can help you?" Well, I don't really work with that specific technology, if you will, but the black flame has been seen in different cultures in different ways. My understanding is it is well, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to say, because my knowledge of it is like 2%, and I don't even want to talk about it. It's not something I work with. How about that? I don't use that symbolism, but I do have my own understandings of the dark side of things, if you will. Let's see. Donnie Bresco says, at your comment about the meat, you can read reviews from food health inspectors, how they can find rotting food, mold, yeah, and they still get an A+ rating. System is effed. Well, as usual. And here's something I've tried to tell people a lot of times in the past, and again, this kind of a dog whistle, or at least an indication of my political views. When I say that I'm in favor of certain kinds of regulation, I mean regulation that empowers the consumer, not the kind that necessarily creates a power structure that a big corporation can use to get away with things. And what do I mean by that? When you have a problem, okay, let's say you have a problem with food and there's dirty food entering the consumer market. People with good intentions will be propagandized into thinking that the solution is to give the government the authority to go in and not just inspect, but to have some kind of new power to control the situation. And then that new power for a little while will help some people. It'll get rid of, the mad cow disease or whatever the hell is going on. But then that same regulation 5 or 6 years later will be used by a corporation to shut down a small farm because they have a 0.0001%, infection rate or something crazy like that. And you see this all the time. And it happens in every industry. And that's why I have a saying, the sword that you forge and give to the king today to protect you from the enemy at the gates will be turned and put at your own throat next year, or some variation of that statement. And you can write that one down. That's one of the ones I hope they quote me on when I'm dead. So, yeah, keep that in mind. When you are trying to fix a problem, be careful you're not empowering the enemy to destroy you with the solution. That is something that if you really study the occult, you really understand this. Because the occult doesn't just mean magic. The occult means every form of human manipulation you can imagine. And it's a very important topic. My ancestry includes those blue bloodlines that know all about this. I am somewhat familiar just because of the conversations I've had with grandmama. Okay, these things are real. And the powers that be know that perception is king. Perception is everything. Perception is literally how you do magic, at least 90%, if not 100%. Perception's everything. And if you can convince enough people that what you say is true, that the emperor is fully clothed, then that little boy who stands up and says the emperor has no clothes will be beheaded, because everyone knows the emperor is wearing his clothes. So they know that if they can control the perception, if they can control the narrative, if they can make sure that people like me who are saying these things get made fun of and turned to the, whatever, or get censored, then they can literally steer reality however they want. And that's not conspiracy theory. That's not magical thinking. That is fact. That is absolute fact. And if you look back at all the power structures in antiquity, you see the exact same rules at play. Let's see. There's not much else going on out there. Have I thought about writing a small autobiography? Actually, in some ways, Shadownomicon is. That's probably the most I'll do, at least until maybe like 20 years from now, if I ever continue along this trajectory. At that point, maybe there'll be some interest in it for real. But no, Shadownomicon would be the closest I would be willing to write at this point. And since I did actually just re-engage with an old friend of mine who was my friend during that period, he and I are in discussions of bringing him on my channel once or twice, maybe more if he enjoys it, to talk about those things that we experienced and how things might have changed for me now, so I can reflect on them, because some of the stuff that I reported is either from journals or from memory, and some of the stuff I would like to have a conversation with this guy with, and have the other side, because he was on the receiving end of some of this stuff. So we'll go with that. Let's see. So I think we're going to wrap up on this live stream in a minute here, because it's been going for a lot longer than I intended. But you guys are so awesome that I'm actually surprised to see this many people watching at this hour with no notice. I mean, literally, I didn't share it to Facebook hardly. I didn't do anything. I just went live, and there's 25 people watching, which means it'll probably turn into 100 views pretty quickly. So I really think that you guys are awesome for talking to me and watching this. And if you don't mind, if you would do me a favor tonight, and I probably could ask you guys this more, but if you don't mind, share this amongst your groups, anybody who you think is already a fan of my work. And at the very least, when I release the next video, stay tuned on my BitChute account, which I'll put a link soon for that. Subscribe to that and all that good stuff, so that doesn't miss you when it comes out. But I don't like to use BitChute because it's kind of unreliable at the moment. So I guess let's see if there's anything else that popped up. Sorsha says she'll remove her tinfoil if she can line the walls with it. Yeah. Create that Faraday cage, right? But yeah, I should probably rest assured that so long as I just take the same kind of precautions I would for this situation as I would a virus, and just cover my nose and make sure that I don't rub it in anything dirty, there's a good chance that my channel will be fine. But I am annoyed. I am annoyed deeply, because this is something that, as a Luciferian, really irks me. It really bothers me, and it is normal. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in so late, and some of you guys who just showed up, I do apologize for getting ready to wrap it up now. If it was up to me, I'm a talker. Any of you guys in my mentorship program, or anybody who does a consult with me, you know that I'll be like, we got an hour to do a consult, and 3 hours will go by and we're still talking. So try to understand. It's because I have an overactive throat chakra. I'm not afraid to admit that. All right, guys, so I'm going to sign off here. Hopefully I don't screw that up. And if you do see my YouTube channel get taken down or something like that, it's been fun.